We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we truly love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please consider subscribing to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends, your priest, your psychiatrist, your significant other, your dog or your cat. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. We're going to be talking about the Pac-12's vote of confidence that it gave itself. That's why we're doing an emergency live show. We weren't going to do one tonight, but we had to do it. And my take on this whole situation is probably going to upset every single one of you, if not all of you. We're going to have to take a step back. First of all, we do our monologue. Then we get to your comments. And then we're going to do some phone calls. And I got a feeling that people are going to want to call in to tell me that I'm wrong, that I'm reading this incorrectly. I welcome that. Please come in. Give us a phone call. The phone lines are not open yet, but the number is 763-260-1333 because my take on this is not going to make anybody happy. Nobody happy. First of all, well, let's get to our sponsor, and then we're going to get to our sponsor for tonight's show. Then we're going to get into John Wilner's comments about this just tonight, and then Joe Canzano's made an article that just was released before our live show. We're going to go through that as well. But first, let's get to our beautiful, beautiful sponsor of tonight's show. Welcome to Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. We invite you to discover the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. Clean, hot air, roasted coffee produces a smoother, richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans. This is the best coffee me and the wife has ever tried, ever had. Smooth. So if you want to check it out, there's a link in the description box below the video. Check it out if you're going to order some coffee from this incredible Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. If you want to support our show, our channel, put PATC in the comments section when you order it. Give it a try. You will not be disappointed. Now, we're going to get quickly to John Wilner's comments, to John Canzano's comments. But first of all, let's get to the statement. The number still says 1. Hold on a second. Oh, you mean in the description box, the number says 113. Okay, I'll change that up. This is the real phone number, 763-260-1333. Forget about what it says in the description box. I have to get that corrected. I think I am, but it's not saving it. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Let's first get to the statement. Joint statement from the 10 Pac-12 conference board members. The 10 Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating successful media rights deals in the very near future. Based upon positive conversations with multiple potential media rights partners over the past week, we remain highly confident in our future growth and success as a conference and united in our commitment to one another. This is posted by the Pac-12 conference's board members. A lot of takes all over Twitter, message boards, mostly negative, saying this is a weak statement. Why even put this out there? Just announce the deal already. Just get the deal done. You don't need to do this. Putting this statement out is a sign of weakness. It's a sign that they're not ready to sign a deal. Paul Feinbaum said something to that effect when this deal came out, as it was reported. I call it Pac-12 giving a vote of confidence to itself. The more I read it, the weaker it gets. However, to be honest with you, I expected pretty much exactly this. We've been talking about Peek Around the Corner. Historically, you get a positive spin, some positive reinforcement, some positive communication, usually from your commissioner. We'll get that in a second here. From your commissioner or from some highly credible athletic directors or presidents. You always get this before the deal gets announced, historically. Now, this is coming in a different way. It's the Pac-12 conference board members. It's not the commissioner coming out and talking or putting a letter out there. Quite honestly, I'm not sure they again, this is where I start getting people upset. I don't think they have confidence in him. I'm going to go, because this is the commissioner's job to say this, to be blunt. And this is from a joint statement from the 10 Pac-12 conference board members. I'm going to just leave this up here for a moment. I did not have time to punch in Canzano's article. I did Wilner's. We'll get to Wilner's in a second. So I'm just going to read John Canzano, what was put out there 29 minutes ago. Canzano and the Pac-12 punches back with statement on unity. Conference says it's highly confident in future growth. The statement amounts to a curious public relations punch from the 10 conference stakeholders designed to combat some criticism and uncertainty unearthed last week by a variety of media outlets. One Pac-12 source said some of the media narrative on that is not accurate. The Pac-12 isn't just confident about future growth, folks. It wants you to know it's highly confident. The conference is not just having conversations, they're having positive conversations. And the conference isn't just negotiating, it's united while doing so. Got all that? Now this is Canzano kind of mocking the Pac-12 a little bit, honestly. He goes on to say, now will the Pac-12 just get a media rights deal done? The quickest, best way to change the narrative and to prove that the 10 remaining members really are unified is to cut a deal that glues the conference together. Issuing a peculiar statement doesn't come close to accomplishing that. So this is kind of an elbow from Canzano, especially coming from him, guys and gals. Monday's statement was met with raised eyebrows. I found the release to be downright strange. It was the first joint statement from Pac-12 members since last July. Commissioner George Kliavkoff spoke at the Football Media Day in Los Angeles later that same month. He's popped up a couple of times since, including a podcast interview he did with myself and John Wilner. Last week, the Pac-12 commissioner visited SMU's home basketball game, presumably to explore expansion. A few Pac-12 sources I spoke with were surprised Kliavkoff went through with the visit after it was publicly reported. It must have been important to the overall mission. And we're going to get, now I want you to remember that because we're going to go back to that Saturday Night Live show. We're going to get back to that Saturday Night Live show where we talked about the Arizona State money perch and how that trip to SMU was more for SMU to give them assurances. A surprise twist to the story. I'll continue. These are strange times. I'm sorry, I skipped the point here. I'm also told Kliavkoff also met with officials at San Diego State in late December and that the conference had talked with a couple of others. These are strange times, aren't they? The media world sources I've talked with tell me they've never before seen a media rights negotiation garnering such public attention and scrutiny. But the defections of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten put the process under a spotlight. Again, this thing's been pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's your own commissioner, his own words, that have put it under the spotlight. Oh, did you expect us to get it done before Deion Sanders became head coach? Oh, UCLA is going to make less money going to the Big Ten? I mean, yes, it's going to get under the bigger and bigger spotlight when you're making comments like that. A decade or more ago, fans didn't know about expansion clauses and media rights deals and weren't tuned in to how television households drive the value of a school. Nobody on the outside even knew the conference TV deals were being negotiated until they emerged with signed contracts in hand. Times have changed, especially here at Peek Around the Corner. That's why we're here for you. I've had a good time flipping over rocks, back channeling, and exploring the underbelly of things since last summer, but I'd like to get back to talking about football and basketball if everyone else is good with that. That can't happen until the Pac-12 cuts a media deal. Also until the CEO groups decide how many schools it wants to add. What does the Pac-12 want to be in 2024 and beyond? A 10-team conference? 12 or 14? Does it make sense to capture geography that extends the footprint into Texas? How about Louisiana? Does the Pac-12 look small time or opportunist if it grabs SMU, San Diego State, UNLV, and one other school? My predictions based on source conversations. Again, this is John Canzano. The Pac-12 will soon cut a media deal. It will likely expand by 2 members. Oregon and Washington aren't going anywhere. Neither of the 4 corner schools. Then we'll all move on talking about the next college football season. Over the weekend, I reached out to an involved source at one of the 4 corner schools. Now listen to this. Over the weekend, I reached out to an involved source at one of the 4 corner schools. I asked that person if he or she wanted to make a public statement and address the rumors of Pac-12 instability. Was the conference really threatening to unravel? Were members antsy? Certainly the ongoing uncertainty is unsettling for the fans. The source said, invest your energy elsewhere. I'd love to, just as soon as the deal gets done. I will tell you, a couple Mondays ago when that Pac-12 meeting went on, and we had a live show on it, January 31st, and then this Saturday night, there was some hard feelings in that meeting. And we know of one school, especially Arizona State. Saturday night, we read an Arizona State letter from the Money Perch. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch Saturday night's live show, the start of it. In that letter, a lot of hard feelings. A lot of hard feelings came about because of the UCLA situation, where at the end of it, the Board of Regents, Rich Lieb, talked about how California tried to put pressure on the Big Ten, tried to get Stanford, California, Washington, Oregon to the Big Ten. It didn't work. And here's Arizona State, and other schools are sitting there waiting to get a deal done, and here California is plotting to get themselves out of the Big Ten, while at the same time they're hammering UCLA's decision to go to the Big Ten. We've covered all that before, correct? Correct. But at the end of that letter that I read Saturday night, Arizona State's Money Perch, and he's talked to other people about this in the Pac-12, Arizona State's not going anywhere if Arizona doesn't go anywhere. Arizona's not going anywhere unless California, Stanford just leave. And they're not leaving. The only way the Pac-12 unravels here in 2023 is if Oregon and Washington leave by themselves or take others. And the chances of that, as we've said, the odds are still in favor of the Pac-12 staying together. Staying together, then expanding. This, and we'll get to Wilner's comments in a second. While this statement looks weak, now this is where I get Pac-12 school people mad at me if they want, Pac-12 fans mad at me if they wanted their Pac-12 school to leave, or the Big 12 fans mad at me because they wanted a Pac-12 school to enter their conference. Even though this statement looks weak, it's what I expected. And it's what I've been talking about for weeks. Something like this was going to happen before the deal gets done. Is it weak? Yes. It should have came from its commissioner? Yes. But they don't trust him? Yes. So this statement came out. Now, I'm gonna say this before I get to the Wilner part, since I'm on a mini rant. I'm gonna say this, and then we'll get to Wilner, and then we'll get to your comments. And I've said this for weeks. The reason why the Pac-12 is going to stay together, because Pac-12 universities want to remain Pac-12 universities. All the reasons that are obvious to everybody in this chat. But that isn't promised to anybody 7 years from now. Now this is where I get the Pac-12 people mad at me. I can't wait to get underneath the hood to look at that media deal that's about to get signed. The people that have spoken to me, and I think the deal is going to be absolutely dreadful. John Wilner himself, forget about everything I say. John Wilner himself, Mercury News, Pro PAC, we all know this. He even went out a couple days ago and said, this is my prediction for the future for 2030. There's going to be 3 conferences, Big 12, Big 10, SEC. I think there's going to be 4. I don't think the ACC is going away. He even believes that the Pac-12 is going to be extinct after this next immediate deal. Extinct. Whoa. How do you come to that decision when Pac-12 universities want to remain Pac-12 universities for all the obvious reasons? Because this deal is going to stink. It really is. And okay, we're sitting here, we're talking about this Arizona State thing. I don't know. I mean, this statement came out today. You heard what John Canzano said. Did they all look around at each other and look at each other and say, are we still all in? Because if we're all in, let's put out this statement. The commissioner's name's not anywhere on this. This is almost, to me, is like they're all looking at each other. Do we trust all of each other? Let's put out this statement. It sounded like a statement that would have been written by academics and not like a PR sports guy, right? Or woman. So as much as I am now, so this is how I get everyone to get mad at me. As much as I truly believe, now it's been unsteady. The odds have gone from minus 103 to about minus 125. Not a big chalk, but minus 125 to say Pac-12 stays together. They sign this deal. As much as I say they get over the hump here, they're in trouble. They're in trouble for the next 7 years. And it reminds me, and I know people disagree with me, they think it's over now. I don't think it is. But you can call me, put the comments in, tell me I'm reading it wrong. When Texas signed that deal with Disney, ESPN, for LHS, for Longhorn Network, that saved the Big 12. It also put the Big 12 on its death sentence. At Flag Empire, for years, people in this chat know what we're talking about. People in this chat, Daniel Monacasso, others, I had ferocious discussions, let's put it that way, with the dude of West Virginia and other West Virginia Big 12 people. I said, all the big money people, all the money purchasers said that Oklahoma and Texas were never going to extend to another media deal and to extend another gore with the Big 12. The Big 12 became a horse and buggy conference because of the Longhorn Network. The Big 12 was the only Power 5 conference that couldn't bundle all of its live sport content together to sell it on the open market. It was a dead man walking. That's what I think this Pac-12 media deal, and a very, very smart people out there in Pac-12 are going to disagree with me. But this deal, once we look under that hood, I got a very strong suspicion that this is going to be their death sentence. I think they're going to tumble. I think they're going to sink. And when John Wilner is not saying there's going to be 3 super conferences in 2030, and he's not naming Pac-12. John Wilner's not saying that because Pac-12's because the Pac-12 doesn't have commonality. They're not united because they don't share the same mission. Because they do. They're great, large research universities. It's because of this next media deal. I predict when this thing comes out and we check under the hood, there's not going to be a whole lot of there's going to be a lot of nervousness, not a whole lot of positive comments, even coming from the Pac-12 beat writers. It's going to be a very untraditional deal. I do not think it's going to work, but we'll get to it when it comes out. So that's why I'm not making anybody happy tonight. I know the Arizona State money perch gentleman, he says they're stuck. Arizona won't move because they feel they're stuck. California and Stanford have no incentive to move. Colorado won't do it. On and on. There is no four-corner going to the Big 12. It's about Oregon and Washington's president is part of the executive committee. So, I think it's a lot like the Big 12 many years ago when Texas signed that Longhorn Network deal. It put the albatross around the conference. It kept it alive. It kept it breathing, but it kept it in ICU. And I think that's exactly where the Pac-12 is going when they sign this deal. I'm going to get the Wilners. I'm going to get the Wilner statements. And then the rest of the night. The rest of the night is comments and phone calls from you all. Because I know you got a lot to say. I know pretty much everyone disagrees with me at some point in that monologue. Let's get to his comments. Wilner. Quiet for more than 7 months as their conference attempts to secure its future. The remaining Pac-12 presidents on Monday released a joint statement addressing the unresolved media negotiations. The 10 Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating a successful media rights deal in the very near future based upon positive conversations with multiple potential media rights partners over the past weeks. We remain highly confident. It's pretty weak. There's better wording, but we remain highly confident in our future growth and success as a conference and united in our commitment to one another. Okay. The Pac-12 is seeking a media deal that would commence in the summer of 2024. ESPN and Amazon are involved in the negotiations, according to John Wilner, according to multiple industry sources, as is at least one other major media company. The public show of unity comes amid mounting criticisms in the college sports media space over the lack of media rights agreement, with some reports speculating that the Pac-12 could fracture. Kliavkoff's pursuit of a media deal began in early July, when he received permission from the Pac-12 Board of Directors to immediately begin negotiations. More than a football season later, there is no media deal, no decision on expansion, and no grant of rights agreement that would bind the schools together for the next contract cycle. And then finally, we'll finish it up here, then we'll get to your comments and phone calls. And late last week, following the announcement of separation agreement with Texas and Oklahoma, which are bound for the SEC, Yormark told Sports Illustrated that he would begin to aggressively pursue Big 12 expansion. He did not name names. But the comment was construed by some as a sign that Yormark hopes to lure the Four Corner schools, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, and Arizona into his league. All this comes as multiple media reports in recent weeks have suggested the Pac-12 is scrambling to generate interest in its football inventory. The statement released by the Pac-12 presidents was their first joint public comment on the media rights process since July. So those were Wilner comments. We went through Canzano's comments. We read the Pac-12 statement. We'll read that later on this evening. Now, the most important part is we're going to get to your comments. Your comments and your phone calls. Let's catch up. Thanks for all coming. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's get right to it right now. Ryan Martin, the dreaded vote of confidence. Jeremy LaHaye, it sounds to me that San Diego State's time to move up in the world is swiftly approaching. The perfect storm for San Diego State. We talked about it in episode 4 of this channel, all the way back in August when we first started the channel. The perfect storm is brewing for San Diego State. It looks like it is. Wilner and Canzano are about as pro-PAC as you can get. And that is why their comments, if you read those comments, they're not as positive as they've been in the past. Wilner doesn't think they exist after 2030. And I'm starting to agree with them. We'll see after we open up the hood on this new deal. But I am very negative about what's about to happen for the Pac-12. And Canzano, some of that article today, some of it was mocking the Pac-12's own messaging over the last few months. Did they go to couples therapy? RW. Alex says, who is this message for? Reads like the conference pleading for schools not to bolt. I think this was probably a gut check time. Everyone's looking. This is my theory, just speculation. Right? A lot of noise was made. A lot of noise has been made the last few days. And I'm not talking about me. We're just a tiny little YouTube channel we're the rebel outpost of college football YouTube channels. But other people were picking up what we laid down the day after the Pac-12 meetings. We know that is good information. There was some hard feelings in that meeting. No one is denying it. No one has said we were wrong. Right? So they're all looking at each other. Prisoner's dilemma. I think they got together and they kind of asked each other, we still all in? Yeah, we're all in. And I think they're all in because Oregon and Washington are going nowhere because they just don't like the options they have in front of them at this point. Motivision. This reads like the same statement the Big East made right before Pitt, Syracuse, and West Virginia left. I've seen some other people make that comparison. Cornelius Green did, the late Big East commissioner. Said the same thing after Pitt and Syracuse bolted to the ACC. Ryan Martin says, punch. This is not a punch back. It's more like a weak smack. Anthony says, I don't know that they sound confident. Anthony disagrees. I don't know if confident is the correct word. I just think, but everything we've heard at Peek Around the Corner, I do not think there's an opportunity for this conference to unravel in 2023 unless Oregon and Washington does it. And I know there's a lot of smart people that disagree with me out there because their reporting has led them elsewhere, not our reporting. This is where we believe it stands. In Washington, they're in the thick of this. Their president is part of the executive committee. Cornelius Green says, I'll take Wilner and Canzano with a grain of salt. Tebow 49, the famous vote of confidence in a coach, then fired in a week. You know what? I wrote this down, Daniel. Thanks for reminding me. I wrote this down. This is very interesting. NBC is expected to be very aggressive in regaining the rights to the NBA from ESPN. There's a bidding war in the making for the NBA while the Pac-12 is wanting a rights deal. This is so very important. Thank you, Mr. Montcastle, for putting this up there because I've got it written in my notes and I forgot to talk about it. NBC expected to make a very aggressive They're going to try to get this NBA back. I think it's been about 20 years. NBC and NBA used to have a very tight relationship. For you old people you guys know what I'm talking about. NBC, NBA. Again, this doesn't help the Pac-12 because, if they're going to go to Amazon, if they're going to put their sports on Amazon Prime, they would love if Amazon gets at least some of the NBA package, right? That would only help people get used to going to Amazon. They would go to the sports app to see NBA, and maybe they would see Pac-12 listed and get reminded that the Pac-12 content is there. There's so much value for the Pac-12 if Amazon can get some big media package. And here the news breaks that NBC is going to be very aggressive to get the NBA. And to get the NBA, any part of that package is going to be monster money. So I will add in this. I wonder what the Irish are thinking about what NBC is about to do to try to get the NBA. Cornelius Green says Jason Scheer of Wildcat Authority seems pretty plugged in, and the one I've tended to believe over Wilner and Canzano. But I don't think Jason Scheer even believes that Arizona is going to move. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments section if I'm wrong. From everything we've heard, Arizona is not moving. And if they do, then we'll have a fun live show where you guys all climb on top of me in the chat room and phone calls. But they're not moving. They will not move unless Oregon and Washington goes and hopefully takes Arizona and Arizona State with them, something to that effect. But everyone's pretty much stuck. They don't have the options. They're not going to move. They're not going to break up the Pac-12. Only Oregon and Washington can do it as of right now. This is the information. This is what Peek Around the Corner heavily believes. Yes, just reported by Front Office Sports about NBC. Battlestrap, if the Pac-12 does get a deal, the gore will be interesting, especially when it comes to Washington and Oregon. Absolutely. The penalty phase written in the bylaws, all that will be very, very interesting. It's part of what we're going to do when we open up the hood. We're going to look at this thing. But man, I don't know. I'm buying low. I mean, how do I say this? On the spectrum, I'm on the extreme end of thinking that the Pac-12 is going to get a lousy media deal. And I'm not talking about the money aspect. I do not care about the money aspect. I'm getting a call from Salt Lake City. Okay. Rebecca says Arizona State is truly mad and has been working behind the scenes. They are mad. They are disgruntled. No one is denying that. No one is. But they're still stuck. They are still stuck. According to our money perch guy, take the information however you want it. That's fine. We're putting it out there for you all. But you've noticed that no one's denying the story that we put out January 31st. How many days ago is that? 2 weeks? 2 weeks ago. And other people have picked up on it. And no denying of that. One of the reasons they probably put this out, trying to show some unity. Ryan Thomas' statement is a smokescreen to Kliavkoff. Well, you notice Kliavkoff had nothing to do with this statement. Does that tell you something? It tells me tells me everything. Jeff Watson, for what it's worth, pretty much, yeah, any Big 12 school would have joined the Big 12, but the Big 12 refused. Now one wouldn't join, and the Big 10 is considering SMU, which is a clear less value. Basically, USC stopped any potential Pac-12 expansion. USC president said, no, we're not interested in Pac-12 expansion. They wanted to make sure they kept their exit ramps open. Because if you were going to bring in more schools in a Pac-12 expansion, what people don't talk about enough is that the media partners, the conference itself, schools in that conference would have wanted to extend that current contract or with a little bit of bump, but they would have extended the gore out and everything. USC didn't want anything to do with that. They wanted to wait to see if an opportunity arose, and it did. They called Big Ten in the spring of 2022. Same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. They kept their exit ramps open. So there was not going to be a pact, and that's why I am a firm non-believer that the ACC is going to expand. Because none of the available schools are going to change the composition clause of the ACC. ESPN is not going to reopen that media contract. And there are some schools in the ACC that don't want to bring in schools that make their slices go smaller. What they make up in the ACC network, possibly getting more money, is not going to make up for them slicing that very small tier one money even more, a couple more slices. The math doesn't work. Now, would Florida State and a few other schools say, yeah, we'll do it, bring in a couple more schools? Oh, and by the way, though, ACC conference that owns our individual media rights, can you put that grant of rights from 2036 maybe to about 2030? And of course, that's not going to happen. That's why we don't think ACC is expanding. I agree, Jay. I absolutely agree. Not to say that streaming is not going to become a big deal later on, but it's just my strongly held opinion. And people, again, I'll just bring up John Wilner again. Why is John Wilner saying that the Pac-12 will not be one of the three remaining conferences in 2030? It's because of this media deal that they're about to sign. And Oregon and Washington know that above all else, or they have that same perceived notion. They just don't have an option right now that they consider is better. They know that they'll be valuable enough a few years down the line to be ready for an opportunity. Another opportunity that is going to cycle around again. Ryan Thomas says, sorry, Greg, but it's over, Rover. Gerard Jones, I feel bad for Washington. They deserve better. Are the donors going to be happy with streaming only? No, they won't be. Absolutely not. And again, if you go back to Saturday night, the Arizona State money perch with the letter, he had some paragraph in there saying something like a small paragraph in his email, something about Arizona's demographics, basically saying Amazon's going to be horrible for the Arizona schools. This is Rock Chalk 94, why do Stanford and Cal get a say in how to run the league when would be left out if imploded. Because people love to be associated with Stanford in California for literally billions of reasons, billions of dollars reasons. California and Stanford, two of the greatest universities in this country, all that association, that means so much. It means a lot to the Big Ten. It means a lot to the Pac-12. They do not want to break up from each other. They just don't. They don't. In Arizona, AAU school, they do not want to leave. They do not want to go away from Stanford in California unless they have to. And they would have to if Oregon and Washington left. And then they would be saying, can we come along with you, Ducks and Huskies? Now, maybe the Arizona State money perch is wrong. Everything we've heard is wrong. And we shall see. But I'm telling you, from what you are at this YouTube channel for us to be blunt with you all. We're going to tell you what we believe. Everything we've heard is that they're going to get over this hump, but the next 7 years very as likely is a death sentence. And then there are going to be people who disagree with me, and that's fine on that. They think this deal is going to be fine. Maybe they're right. But I think it's going to be a sudden, quick, even more of a decline of the Pac-12 country when it comes to college sports. If that deal is what I think it's going to be. Hopefully for the Pac-12 universities, ESPN gets a decent chunk out for the Tier 1 content, and some other media company, some other media partner, like maybe a CBS, gets some chunk of that Tier 1 content, and it's not all at the hest of Amazon. Okay, let's open up the phone calls, because I got a feeling that I'm going to get chewed out. I'm going to get absolutely chewed out on the phones, and that's fine. I don't want you guys chewing anybody else out in the chat room, but you can chew me out. The number is, I don't know what the number is. I always get it wrong anyways. It doesn't matter what the number is.
Call from
Wild Ute.
Wild Ute, you're here to chew me out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You poo-poo in the Pac-12. I totally disagree with the take.
Got it.
I think the Pac-12 is going to be okay.
Okay.
And I think the Pac-12 gets this deal done, adds SMU and San Diego State,
Okay.
steals Gonzaga in basketball,
Ooh.
and it's going to be fine. You know what? I've made mention of this before in the live chat comments.
Yeah.
People don't realize how bad the Pac-12 networks was with distribution.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And and I know that some games are going to be on Amazon, some Tier 1 games. But guess what? Some good games were also on the Pac-12 network. Let me give you an example. Back a couple years ago, Utah played Arizona State in a top 17 matchup that was on the Pac-12 network.
Yep.
Got no distribution, no run.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're not talking like Amazon is such an upgrade from the Pac-12 network. It's not even close. I mean, like, it's in more homes where people will watch it. So I totally see this being okay. Add ESPN. You can get somebody else in the play to get on mainstream TV. That's going to be a plus. But I just wanted to make that comment first, because I really do think things are going to be okay.
Okay.
And number two, this is a big point. I think right now there is a problem, and I'm going to call this the illusion of stability.
Okay.
And the illusion of stability. And I think that anyone that's outside of the Big Two, SEC, and the Big Ten, if you think that you're stable and sitting pretty, you're not. You're not. Let's look at some case examples. KU is in the Big 12, and they're desperately wanting to get in the Big 10. They made that public. There's more schools in the Big 12 that would love to get in the Big 10. FSU, they want to get in the Big 10. The ACC is incredibly unstable. West Virginia, you can see it on sites, board sites and everything. They want to get in the ACC. I mean, like, seriously, I know they signed the grant of rights, but they don't necessarily want to be in the Big 12. That's going to be a fine sitting spot for the next 7 to 10 years. They don't want to be there long term. Guess what? Washington, Oregon, Utah, we don't want to be in the Pac-12 forever either. So this illusion of stability needs to be thrown off the table unless you're in the top 2 conferences, because it's all jockeying. We're all horses. We're not in the Big 2 trying to get into the Big 2 conferences.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When Wilner says, and he just put it out a couple days ago, when he was asked, who do you think is going to be, what conferences are going to remain in 2030? And he said Big 12, SEC, and Big 10. Why do you think he did not include the Pac-12?
Because I think the Pac-12, I think it is on its deathbed over the next 10, 15 years. But I think the Big 12 is, and the ACC is too. And that's the whole point of this stability.
Yeah,
I don't think there's going to be 3 conferences. I think there's going to be a Big 2. Everybody else is basically going to be a Group of 5 type of conference, or whatever you want to call it in the future. But you really need to get into the Big 2 if you want to be a big boy. So I disagree from Wilner's perspective. I mean, the Pac-12, obviously the members don't want to be together. It is a loveless marriage. It works. I mean, it's too good to break up and go to the Big 12.
They love each other.
Yeah.
I don't think they like each other. I think Pac-12 has been pretty tight. I mean, they've had some. I shouldn't say that, but they have some commonality. They do want to be together. I just happen to believe that Wilner said that, and other people are saying it because of this upcoming deal. Really, I think. But you and I disagree. That's good. That's fine. I love that. But I think it's going to put them even. They just lost the city of Los Angeles. They lost UCLA and USC. And they're about to venture into uncharted waters with streaming. Possible tier 1. Again, we haven't seen the deal yet, right? So.
Right.
I'm being unfair.
Do you mind if I just push back real quick on one
Go ahead,
thought?
push back.
Last point, okay, and then let somebody else jump in. Okay, so do the Pac-12 member institutions right now, outside of USC and UCLA, want to be together? That's a good question right there, and I would argue no.
Oh.
Because I think from what I've heard is that Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal want to be together. But I don't think they could care. I don't think they care at all about the Four Corner schools.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every man for themselves right now.
Yeah.
And so there is a serious fracture in the conference. I think it's going to get duct taped together. The deal's going to be there. It's going to be okay. But again, like in 7 to 10 years, this thing's probably blowing up. And so you better jockey for position.
So we sort of do kind of agree, because we both think the deal's going to get done. Mm-hmm. But in the future, I don't think this deal's going to be more than 7 years. I can't imagine Oregon and Washington agreeing to anything beyond 7 years. So,
but why not? I mean, if it aligns with the Big Ten's contract,
yes,
isn't that really what they're trying to do?
Yeah, and the
Big Ten
contract goes to 2030. So you're not going to get an 8, 9, 10-year deal from the Pac-12. I can't imagine Washington and Oregon agreeing with that. Or
it's going to end in 2030
Utah.
for sure.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
It will end in 2030 for sure. I agree with you 100%.
I would think so.
The Pac-12 deal will end in 2030.
Yeah. I think so. All right. Well, I think we agree more than I'm coming off pretty tough on the deal. You think it's going to be better. You brought up the Pac-12 network and then having all that content have better distribution on Amazon or ESPN Plus. Mm-hmm. I happen to think it's going to be on ESPN Plus. But either way, that is better access, no question about it. But I want to say this. What drives your money? It's like, okay, I'm going to get into the deep weeds here. This is not going to make any sense. But, and I think I've talked about this before. When they have these music award shows, basically they're promoting the industry, right? And years ago, Adele won all these awards, the great singer Adele. And there was a guy on the radio, and he was being asked, a guy in the industry is being asked, why was there so much pomp and circumstance of, all this praising of Adele all throughout the show, all throughout the night, and all the other artists were celebrating Adele's success? You'd think they would have been backstabbing her, being jealous of her, whatever. And the guy said, simply because Adele just made money for everybody. Because everybody that wanted to get Adele's records and songs, and they're purchasing tickets and everything. When they went back then, people bought CDs. When you go to the store and buy her CD, maybe you'd pick up another person's CD. So the big brand drives everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's good for better access. Yes, I agree. Have that third tier Olympic sport, non-revenue sports into an Amazon or into a ESPN is way better than the Pac-12 network. I agree. But what drives your success economically is you get the big boys or the big girls, mano a mano, tier one, and have people watch those games, drive up the ad buy rates of those games. And that's where you get the ratings that uplifts everyone else's ratings. And then for the next media deal, you can make more money.
In the Pac-12, Adele was USC.
Yes.
That was USC.
Yes,
and
but they also had somewhat Fox and ESPN. I mean, they're going to Amazon. And the first thing I will look for when that deal gets done is I'm going to open up that hood and see where are those prime tier one games going to be at. If it's going to be Amazon, I'm going to be crestfallen for the Pac-12. Maybe I'll be the only one. I don't think so. But I think that's going to be devastating. Devastating to the Pac-12. Because you're not going to get these eyeballs that you need to get the ratings up year by year by year, to get yourself ready to have some leverage for the next media negotiations for 2030. Plus all that other stuff with student athletes. Are they going to be looking at Amazon, the recruits, all that other stuff? So I get it. Like in the bigger picture, just like you're saying though, like with this Adele, I love this metaphor, this music awards and Adele. Yeah.
USC was Pac-12's Adele, Texas and OU was Big 12's, FSU is the ACC's. We're all about to lose our Adeles to the bigger conferences and stuff. So really, to me, it's a moot point. It's a complete moot point where you're playing.
Got it.
Like where you're playing on TV, because your big brands are gone now, and so you're kind of just the second level tier conference and everything, and so you need to succeed, I guess, over the next 7 years, do best to jockey for that position. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a depressing take, but that's kind of really how I see it.
Yeah, well, and I agree with you. I think we agree. We're just coming at it from different angles. You from Utah, me in Minnesota.
Yeah.
All righty.
Well, thanks for your time, Greg.
Fantastic phone call, Mr. Wild Ute. Fantastic. Wild Ute. Fantastic phone call.
Call from
Rebecca. Go Huskies.
Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Hi, Greg.
How you doing?
My voice this weekend.
Are you mad at me?
Are
you another person that's mad at me here, or?
Well, you have convinced me that I'm hoping Iowa, Wisconsin, and North Carolina all beat the Gophers this year. No.
Yeah. You're not the only one.
Yeah. I'm sure Motivation's already like, well, whoever he picks, I'm picking the other school anyway. I'm with Wild Ute. Like,
yeah.
I think the Pac-12 is all three conferences not named the SEC and the Big Ten. They're all on their deathbed, right?
Yeah.
This is all coming. Like, this is all an eventuality. Everything looks like it's going to be two conferences and then maybe a third of the leftovers. But I don't think like the Pac-12 we know now will be dead. But I don't think the Pac-12 itself will die because there'll still be some brands left in the conference that can keep the money up above, say, like a Mountain West or, maybe like a Conference USA. It can keep it up pretty high, not as high as it was, but it should still be on the higher side of the group of 5. But, yeah, everything, like, I don't see Washington and Oregon, they're not going anywhere. So if we're being completely honest, if Kliavkoff is close to $30 million, between $25 and $30 million with 10 schools, and everybody else has 12, and essentially we can look at it and say Washington, Oregon, Stanford, probably Arizona State, really Washington and Oregon being in the conference are keeping everything as equal as possible. It makes no sense that anybody's going to leave. And yes, I know ASU has been very internally vocal about the problems. And yes, they know that they have to convince most likely Oregon and Washington to jump ship in order to get into another conference. Because, like, Yormark does not need any more eyeballs. Like, he doesn't need more schools. He at this point, they have everything they need. He needs more money. If he's going to make his schools happy, the dollar has to be everything. I can't see ESPN opening up. They're the only ones with the pro rata clause. I cannot see ESPN being like, oh, hey, you're bringing in the 4 corners. Yeah, we'll open up our checkbook. And then the other school's going, oh, how much do we get? And they're like, oh, maybe like $4 million more a year. Like, I just can't believe that that would be it. If he's who he says he is and what everybody says he is, he's an aggressive salesperson. Washington and Oregon would be the two to maximize everything at that point. It's like my 2 cents on that. But I'm with you.
Yeah. I think we agree. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we agree on that.
Yeah.
We agree on that. I just am like, Canzano and Wilner, people are like, they're bashing them. They'll cover whatever conference is on the West Coast. And I don't know if anybody realizes that. They're covering whoever it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And, so they've done some pieces that people think are like maybe pro Pac-12. They don't work for them. They work for, Canzano works for himself.
Yeah.
And because he's an independent journalist. And then Wilner works for, Bay Area News and multiple other news groups around the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nothing for them to, like, do it. And I know, like, Jason Scheer is very Arizona Homer-esque. I don't want to bash him. He does have some insight and things like that, but his absolute disdain for Arizona, like, being in the Pac-12, like, he thinks Arizona's better than the Pac-12, but he blocks people like me who are like, Arizona's not even the biggest brand, dude. Like, he blocked me because I basically told him Arizona's not the biggest brand.
Yeah.
I
do think he said something today, and I'm paraphrasing it, something like, yeah, Arizona's not going to move. Like, kind of saying what our Arizona State guy said. Just Arizona's not going to move. So they're not going to.
Arizona goes nowhere without Washington and Oregon.
I think.
I think it goes like with Stanford, because everybody says, well, Stanford doesn't want to be in the Big 12 because of politics. That might be partially true, but the other aspect for it is Stanford is an academic institution first. They don't care as much about sports like other schools do. It's not their big thing. I can't beat into the heads of Big 12 folks on this, but sports don't matter to Stanford.
Well, they do. I mean, they have a rich they have a rich history of
they do
of the Olympic sports. They're not.
it's a not like they used to kind of attitude.
Yeah.
They don't matter as much now. But in Stanford's opinion, they're like, sports brings us better students, but the athletes can't get into Stanford unless they actually can qualify for Stanford. There's no special treatment for them. It doesn't exist at Stanford. So Stanford, it's a big thing for Stanford to know who they're affiliated with. And then to top it off, Washington, California, and Stanford are the only remaining founding members of the Pac-12. The only three.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the conference started in the 50s, it was Washington, Cal, Stanford, USC, and UCLA that formed the conference. Oregon, Washington State, and Oregon State didn't join until the early 60s.
Yep.
So there's like an 8-year gap. So, I mean, I get it. We're talking 80, 70, 80, 90 years of affiliation that you just want to, like, break now.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Arizona schools, we're in 40-plus years of being affiliated. Like, it's not – and everybody's benefited from everybody. It's not an easy breakaway. USC broke away essentially because they were disgruntled for years because Larry Scott treated them like garbage. Like, unfortunately, I'll say it out loud. He didn't treat them like garbage. To them, he did, but he really was like, no school's above the other, and they didn't like that.
Yeah.
But like, I'll give the floor back. I just want to say, I'm like, there's so much to it that they're not going anywhere as of now. We always say now.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Appreciate the
Thank
call.
you. Yeah.
All right. Okay, a couple comments from the Longhorn Network in my monologue. I'll get to that in a second.
Call from
Ryan Martin.
Ryan Martin, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, sir?
Oh, well, first off, I have to ask how you're doing today, sir.
Good. I'm doing real good.
Good.
I got a haircut. No one's noticed, but...
Oh, well, you do look very fashionable under your headgear.
Yes,
sir.
thank you very much. It's only made my big fat head look even bigger, my haircut.
Oh.
But continue on.
It looks very suave, sir.
Yes.
It looks very suave.
Thank you.
So I want to address a couple of different things. First and foremost, I agree. I agree with Wild Ute's point about the illusion of stability to a point. I think he's right insofar that anybody in any conference that is not in the Big Ten or the SEC right now would take an invitation to the Big Ten or the SEC in a heartbeat. That being said, I think they're looking at the wrong fight. I think realistically, and this kind of mirrors what Wilner's comments were about the future of college football. Of any of the conferences that exist right now, the Big 12 tends to be, in my opinion, the most stable for a couple of different reasons. The 99-year membership agreement is a huge roadblock to anybody leaving for a lateral move. Nobody's gonna leave the Big 12 for the Pac-12 or the ACC right now, because why would we pay $100 million to go for the same amount of money with some other schools?
Yeah, basically the 99-year agreement in the bylaws is a 2-year exit fee based upon how much media conference payout money you get. So yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to go up starting in 2024.
Yeah.
For OU and Texas, it was supposed to be $80 million. It got negotiated down, but still nobody's going to go through all of that rigmarole to do that just for a lateral move.
Yep.
But nobody's going to say no to an SEC or a Big Ten invite. The goal, and I think the goal in mind that the Big 12 had when they brought on Brett Yormark was they wanted to solidify the Big 12 as the third kind of best of the rest super conference. And of course, I know I'm probably going to get lambasted in the chat for that about, Big 12's not a super conference, blah, 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 blah. My point being that I think if you structure the Big 12 in a way that the Big 10 and the SEC, the SEC is super regional, but it has some of the biggest blue blood schools you have. It has Alabama, OU, Tennessee, Texas, all of them now, Texas A&M. So it demands the value because of the blue blood schools. The Big 10, fairly similar, but they have fewer of the bigger blue bloods, but they now control the biggest markets in the United States, being LA and New York, Northern Virginia, DC area, all of that. Big 12 will take that even a further step. It won't have any blue bloods, but it'll have the breadth of the country. It'll have, 20, 24 teams by the end of all of this. And you can reasonably guarantee that a Big 12 game will be on an over-the-air channel or on ESPN, or, if the future is streaming on a streaming channel from 9 a.m. on the East Coast until, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever the latest kickoff time is on the West Coast. That's a lot of football. And I don't think they're ever going to command the amounts of money that the Big Ten and the SEC have, but they're still going to end up getting maybe, I think a good goal would be to get in within 25 to 30% of what they're making. So whatever the Big Ten and the SEC are making, the Big 12 is making 70% of that.
Yeah.
Breathe.
Yep.
And I think that's the overall goal, and that's why the stability for the Big 12 matters. For the ACC, stability is only as long as their grant of rights exists. I think some teams are going to get poached, and they're gone. We all see the instability in the Pac-12 now, and, reasonably, I think that Brett Yormark might be able to pull a rabbit out of his hat and manage to lure some teams away? Who knows at this point? It's all craziness. But I think at the end of it all, there's going to be something's going to happen, and it's going to cause all of these schools to kind of consolidate. Because they kind of have to in order to survive.
Yeah.
Another interesting point that I kind of wanted to bring up, and this will be my last point, and I'll hand the floor back. It's very interesting to see how things are moving cyclically historically. The back when Mizzou, Colorado, Texas A&M, and Nebraska left, the Big 12 got poached, and then an autonomy conference imploded. All of the comments that were made today by the Pac-12 member presidents, very interesting and eerily similar to the comments made by the president of the commissioner of the Big East.
Yeah.
He made fairly similar comments, and then literally like 2 weeks later, the Big East collapsed when Pitt, Syracuse, and West Virginia left.
That's correct. Yep.
Not saying that's the final outcome here, but I think it's very interesting. And then the other thing too that that kind of popped into my head, people keep talking about how the University of Washington is currently leading it's their turn to lead the CEO group for the Pac-12.
Yep.
When Mizzou negotiated their exit to the SEC, guess who was leading the Big 12's team of presidents at the time? Mizzou.
Okay, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, when Mizzou left, just because somebody's taking an active leadership role, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's not still looking out for what's best for their school.
True. Yeah.
And will leave if that makes more sense for them.
True.
Interesting historical tidbits that I wanted to throw out there at the very end.
Okay.
I hope you have a good rest of your evening, sir. As it's been fun as always.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate the phone call. Excellent. Quickly before another phone call gets through, when I talked about the Longhorn Network, yes, it was an albatross around the conference. It caused instability, but it saved the conference from going under at the beginning because Texas was about to bolt or could bolt to the Pac-12 or wherever. But the Longhorn Network made the deal happen.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Everyone's mad at me, but I'm doing pretty good.
Well, the Pac-12 statement from the president, it kind of reminds me of the baseball analogy when the manager goes out to the mound and pulls the pitcher. I think something significant about that. I think right now, I'm going to speculate, but I think George Kliavkoff, that message to me was more of a vote of no confidence in him, and they're probably assigning him to other duties. And I think the executive committee is probably taking charge of the TV negotiations, and they're probably bringing in someone like a Bob Delaney or someone else from the outside to advise them on that. But that's to me what I kind of gathered from this. That's what it tells me. But I would also add that, it's wonderful to associate with Stanford and Cal, but when the people who you associate with stab you in the back, that desire to associate quickly diminishes. And
that's why Arizona. That's one of the reasons why the Arizona State money perch guy in Arizona State are so upset, are so pissed.
Yep.
Because it's...
Yep.
Go ahead.
And, honestly, what I think is going to happen is the presidents are going to see if they can get something done in the next 4 weeks. And it's really make or break time, put up or shut up. And, if they can do something in the next 4 weeks, then they'll probably hang on for that, next 6-7 years, whatever, until, the next round of realignment. But if they run through the same reality and the problems that they have, then I think what's going to happen is you'll start to see the conference fracture amongst the presidents themselves, and I think then you'll start to see defections.
I think so.
I do not believe for a minute that Arizona State and Arizona are going to. They realize more than the others that they don't necessarily have options. And I don't think they're going to wait around to get screwed. And I think that money perch letter that you shared kind of reflects that mentality, that sentiment. I mean, they want to keep it together, but if they can't, they have no problem walking. And I think that's probably, I would not be surprised if that happened. I don't think, people think I'm nuts when I say this, but my prediction is that Arizona State and Arizona leave, and Pac-12 replaces them with San Diego State and SMU and stays at 10 for the next 7 years. That's my prediction. People think it's unlikely, but I think it probably is.
It's hard to see. It's hard to see both those Arizona schools going into a conference that does not have a California school in it, though.
But the fact of the matter is, though, is what if something happens
I know.
You have to look at,
And
you
it
know, from a
almost
brand
happened.
exposure wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, ASU has spent 6 times the research money that Oregon does, yet Oregon is AAU and ASU is not.
Yeah.
And, you know, the interesting thing is just because you leave a conference doesn't mean those relationships terminate. Those research relationships terminate. I think that you're going to see, if they can come together, then I think they stick together. But if the presidents somehow, you know, have unrealistic expectations and fail themselves in making something happen, then I think the conference will splinter apart. But I do think that Kliavkoff has basically been sent to the showers. I think that's what's happened. And I mean, and I would not be surprised after this media deal is done if he is relieved of his duties. You know, there's no excuse, because obviously if you felt that you've been lied to or misled or overpromised, those are not exactly terms of endearment. And I think usually he's not getting fired now because it's a crisis moment right now. So the best thing you do is just, you know, put him off to the side and deal with it. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's going to be make or break. But as someone pointed out, the NBA deal's coming up.
Yeah.
And I think Amazon and NBC are going to partner on that. They already partner with the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think Amazon and NBC are going to make a heavy play for the NBA on streaming and for the Saturday and Sunday games. I think that's going to happen, and it'll be very interesting to see as negotiations for other things come up. That money is going to get tight, and the priorities are going to change, and that's why if they don't get something done in the next 4 weeks, if something is not leaked or something, if something is not like in principle together by the beginning of April, I think they're done. And, you know, there's really no way to put it. So right now it's crunch time. We'll see whether or not they can pull through. But if they, you know, get to warring with each other and the animosity continues to boil over, I don't think they're going to go over the top. So, you know, I think this is sort of the beginning of the end. But, you know, people can call me crazy, but you don't put a statement out like that knowing that it was going to get. They had to have known that this type of statement would have gotten some sort of negative backlash. And if there was a deal coming, there would have been positive news leaked in the deal. But nowhere in that statement did they say they were close. You know, they're not close. They don't have anything. Nothing's leaked. And if they were close, they would be able to float out something, of a range.
I've got the statement posted up here, and it said the 10 Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating successful media rights deal in the very near future. So it basically does say they're close.
No, I don't know. This is
all right.
the parsing words in me, but I mean, because in the very near future, what does that mean? I mean, nowhere does that imply that agreement is an agreement is close to be negotiated. I mean, it means, you know, something can go from nothing to 60, you know, in a week if need be, and you know it's close. But you know, close implies that, you know, they've got, you know, they have the same vision and the same mind. But very near future to me sounds like, you know, we're going to try to wrap this up, but it doesn't sound like no one's on the same page. So, I mean, I would parse that differently, because, I mean, if it's close, you use the word close because that's the most reassuring word you use. But, you know, to say we're close is more reassuring than the near future. To say the near future sounds more like a hopeful statement as opposed to, you know, we've got this taken care of.
Yep.
But that's just me parsing words, and that's what I do for a living. So, anyway,
right.
I'll let you go, Greg, but thanks for having me on.
Beautiful call. Thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Now, Dale Donuts, what did Wilner just tweet? You've got a post up on the chat room. What did Wilner just tweet? Let me know. A lot of comments. I'm way behind the comments. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, smash that like button, share the video with your family, friends, psychiatrists.
Moen.
Mona Vision, Mr. Buckeye is in the house. He says on Twitter that Pac-12 statement was like the last helicopters leaving Saigon. Mona Vision, what do you think?
Well, I just want to posit something to you, Greg, and you tell me what you think.
Got it.
If Gene Smith called Washington's president tomorrow and said, hey, I'm helping Kevin out here in his last days, and we suddenly got 9 votes to get you in the conference at a half share, would Washington leave the Pac-12?
A half share would be $35 million for media money. Does that half share, are they a fully invested owner of one slice of the Big Ten network?
Yes.
Okay. So $35 million, they're an owner of the Big Ten network, just like UCLA and USC is. Would Washington take that deal? Washington would take that deal.
Okay.
No questions about it. Because 7 years from now, or 6 years from now, or 5 years from now, they'll be totally fully invested school of the Big Ten. They would take that deal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now say same thing, Stanford.
Yes, they would take
Stanford take that deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, no questions
Now,
asked.
would Washington take that deal knowing that the Oregon Ducks would be excluded?
Yes, Washington would take that deal. Now, I'm giving you my best analysis.
Sure.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
Now, would Stanford take that deal knowing California would be excluded?
Yes. I think so.
Now, would Arizona State take that deal knowing Arizona would be excluded?
Yes.
So how can you put out a statement like that says you're united? You're only united by your options.
Yes.
You are not fully committed. You are partially committed at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes. And getting back to Saturday night, the Arizona State money perch letter, basically that is what he's saying. Nobody has the options except for maybe Oregon and Washington, right?
Or Stanford.
But
I would put Stanford in
that's
there.
your point, wasn't his point. But it doesn't look like they have options. Big Ten ain't coming knocking right now. Now I know you're theorizing. You're saying, what if? I understand it.
Right, but I'm just trying to make the point that it's a little hypocritical for them to put that statement out saying we're fully committed, when clearly they're not fully committed. They're partially committed. They're committed based off of their options.
Yeah, I'm going to read the statement once again. I got up on the board here. The first time I read it, it was like, okay, I expected this type of statement. Then I noticed the Pac-12 Commissioner Kliavkoff doesn't have anything to do with the statement. And then the more you read it, the weaker it gets. The joint statement from the 10 Pac-12 conference board members, the 10 Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating successful media rights deals in the very near future based upon positive conversations with multiple potential media rights partners over the past weeks. We remain highly confident in our future growth and success as a conference and united in our commitment to one another.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing, George Kliavkoff is nowhere to be found in there.
Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes that they don't trust their commissioner to get this out.
Yes.
And I believe another caller had said it. I forget who brought it up, but it was a great point. I think he might have George may be out of the media negotiations at this point. The 3-member committee may just have taken this over. I mean, it's pretty telling that they don't have their commissioner involved on putting this press release out.
Yeah,
it's basically showing to me they don't trust him to not say something incredibly stupid.
Yeah, off the cuff. They don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Just something incredibly dumb. But I do tend to agree with you more on this than other things. I do think the PAC will sign a media deal. I also agree with, I believe it was Wilner. I do believe there will be 3 conferences by the time we hit 2030. It's just a matter of time before the Big Ten and the SEC pick what they want out of the ACC and bring all the bigger brands under their umbrella. But I do see the Big 12. The Big 12 has carved itself into a very niche market that it can survive in.
Yep.
I don't think the Pac-12 or the ACC can. And even if some schools like Kansas leave the Big 12, it's not like they couldn't fill that in with a market like Memphis and still have a place. So I could definitely see the Big 12. It'd basically be the Big 2, and then you'd have this third entity out there that might get 1 or 2 teams in the playoff every year, while the Big 10 and the SEC would get 4 each. It's.
Yep.
I don't know. It's just like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that is such a, it's like you do better off not saying anything. Sometimes you're better off being silent and being thoughtful than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah.
And with the last 6 months of 4 of these schools flirting with the Big Ten,
yeah,
it's just really ridiculous that they would put out that statement.
And let me make this comment, Monovision, if I can, while you're on the line.
Sure.
Another thing I need to point out is Saturday night, when we read that letter, the Arizona State money perch guy scoffed at this George Kliavkoff going to SMU. I don't know. I can't remember what he said. I don't have the letter in front of me, but for those who missed it, go back to Saturday. But he said something like, that was more to reassure SMU that he could get their votes. Like, he was scoffing at. Like, it wasn't something that it wasn't taken very positive by Arizona State and probably other schools. Like, he put a big negative mark on it, right? Well, today, what does John Canzano say? What does John Wilner say? The Kliavkoff didn't. It wasn't received well by the Pac-12 schools that George Kliavkoff went to SMU. Still went to SMU when the news was broken by Brett McMurphy, and then made himself out in the public, sitting in the booth where everyone could see him. And it doesn't sound like he's got the votes.
Kliavkoff leaked. Yeah, Kliavkoff leaked that information himself. He went out there to put himself in the public eye. I have no doubt that is George Kliavkoff trying to send a message to the board members.
And then the board members.
I think there's a power struggle going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a power struggle going on here, and it's not good for the conference as a whole. That's definitely hurting their media deal.
Yeah.
Releasing statements like this, I don't think this statement helps the media deal. I really don't. I think they've been better off just to be quiet, and when you get the media deal, you announce the media deal. This statement just fuels more rumors, more concerns. You're basically throwing gasoline on a fire. So.
Yeah, okay.
Just my thoughts. Before I go, Greg, I just say no future big expansion without Notre Dame.
All right, thank you. Fantastic phone call once again by Mr. Buckeye Monavision. Thank you, sir. You know, I just take it back to Dale Donuts. Wilner's tweet is in an article he wrote regarding the statement and why it's being released now. They clearly didn't want George to say anything because it would be laced with a tall tale. Again, it's just another block. It's just another thing that the Arizona State money perch guy said, not refuted, and then a couple days later, it's backed up by other people's reporting. I just wanted to throw that out there, just for people who still believe that maybe this guy did not get the story right. He's dialed in. And we'll probably get a hold of him tomorrow after this Pac-12 statement. And if we get any information, and if we can put it out, we'll put it out. And we'll have another live show tomorrow night. We may anyways. We got a lot of things we got to cover in college football. Pretty soon we're going to get to spring football. But this is the story, because the ripple effects on how this goes and how this dances, I can't wait to see the media. I cannot wait to see it. I think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story, and it affects so many great universities. So we'll see how it goes. But we're going to cover this. But there are other things that we need to cover pretty soon here. But yeah, we're going to see what if the money perch guy from Arizona State, if he's got anything to say about the Pac-12 statement, because what he's been, from our perspective, and I think you can see it kind of lining up, what he's saying has been other people talk about it next couple days later. You understand? So we'll see what he says. We'll see if I can just get him to answer a question or two. My question would be that statement that came out. One, what is the money perch people around the Pac-12 think about that statement? And number two, what do you think about George Kliavkoff not being a part of that statement? So hopefully we get some answers, his perspective, and if we do, we'll talk about it tomorrow night. Jamie Thornton is saying, I can promise you this right now. If the Pac-12 can't get within $10 million, $32.5 million per school in the Big 12, Arizona and Arizona State will leave. They're going to get within $10 million. So, but I understand what you're saying, Jamie. Thanks for the comment. Ryan Martin, if you're a media company, do you really want to partner with an entity who's essentially squabbling with their higher leadership? And, Ryan brings up a good point. Maybe this was a rah-rah speech to the media companies that they're talking to. Maybe with all the reports coming out, some hard feelings in that Pac-12 meeting a couple Mondays ago. Maybe with George Kliavkoff going to SMU out in public, maybe he shouldn't have. Maybe that's why the Pac-12 universities kind of said, the board members said, the Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating successful media rights deal in the near future based upon positive conversations. That whole comment about based upon positive conversations with multimedia rights, for them to say that, maybe this is a rah-rah type of comment that's going out to their media partners that they're negotiating with. I don't know. Just a thought. Cornelius Green says if if there were close to a deal, you don't release a statement that more sounds like a desperation plea. Monovision, we're committed until we ain't. To Mazda, Pac-12 leads to fight another day. Greg, what is your new prediction of the Pac-12 all staying together? I'd give it a minus 125. I still think they're staying together, guys. I really do. From everything we've heard, and the Arizona State money perch only solidified that. We got it down to about a minus 103. It was almost a pick 'em. And I think this statement, I see, maybe, I talked about this Saturday, Friday. I might be the only one that was expecting a statement like this. I really expected this. Remember when I said you're going to see some positive comment if a deal's about to get done, a positive comment coming out of Pac-12. That's what you normally see. And because we haven't seen that, it's worrisome. I did not think it would come out like this, though, where Kliavkoff had nothing to do with it, or it's strange. It's strange, but I was expecting something like this. James says, ooh, boy, what a comment. Woo! I'd like to point out that the Pac-12 tweet representing 10 schools with supposed large fan bases has a total of less than 600 likes, and the tweet was 3 hours ago. Yeah, Twitter isn't the standard, but I agree with James. It's all about trends. Wait a second here. We got a comment from Daniel here I want to post. Daniel says AZ Central is running a Twitter poll that asks if the Arizona schools should leave for the Big 12 if an opportunity presents itself. So far, it's 65% in favor. Chad Davis, nice to see you in the house, sir. Really hope the Big Ten doesn't add any new members until they get rid of some schools. Several dead weight programs now that take up the schedule. Is Chad Davis talking about my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers? Did you see? I put out a tweet. I think it was today. I think it was this morning, like at 5 or 6 in the morning. Babe Ruth. There's a picture of Babe Ruth at the practice, University of Minnesota Golden Gophers football practice. He was playing center. It was 1926. And I put down, everybody wants to be a Gopher. People are still expecting this, where schools sort of kick off schools in their conference, the lower brand schools. That's not going to happen. Now, I'm not going to say, look, realignment never sleeps. Realignment never sleeps. These conferences get big. It's more difficult to keep them keep them without fracturing. Could 10, 15, 20 years from now the economics change for college sports where there's an incentive to become smaller, the conferences becomes, I don't see how that can be, but let's say it happens. You'll have maybe the top schools of the Big Ten join the top schools of another conference, SEC, become some sort of super conference, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, but maybe in the future, who knows? Who knows? But I don't think the Big Ten's going to say, okay, we're 16 schools and we're going to kick out Rutgers, Purdue, Minnesota, Illinois, whatever. That's just not going to happen, especially in the Big Ten. Big Ten Conference has been around since 1896. It was the Western Conference. Minnesota and Purdue were the original one of the 6 original schools. Minnesota Golden Gophers have pretty much been a part of every big decision the Big Ten has made for 100 and how many years has it been? 120 some. So I don't think the Big Ten or no way is the SEC kicking out Vanderbilt. It's not going to happen. Well, could it fracture someday, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road? Fracture where there's a new conference built where some of the SEC schools going? Possibly. But then they're just not going to kick a single school out or a couple schools out. It's just not going to happen. Joe says, what about those Minnesota State Screaming Eagles? You guys are killing me. Minnesota was a juggernaut when Roosevelt was in office. Are you talking Franklin Delano or are you talking Teddy? Oh, that's right. I got to sing that Geoducks or whatever you pronounce that song. I haven't practiced it yet. I'll get to it. I forgot all about it again. Yeah, Stephen Snook brings up a good point. Regarding 65% in favor, the fans don't have a vote, but those casting the vote better remember fans' big money boosters help the athletic department revenues. Stephen's exactly right. Don't know how to say it, but the money perch, some of those schools, they're just not happy. It's the same, well, it's not the same, but when the news leaked out of Los Angeles, that USC called the Big Ten in the spring, and this was serious. They wanted in, and it was leaked to some money perch people in the Big Ten and was given to us. That's how we broke the story. If you don't know the story, go back to episode 22, way back in our YouTube channel, or hit the pinned tweet at Flag Empire and read about it. I don't know if I even should go down that road, actually. But it was leaked, and the USC money perch, they were building these collectives. If you remember back then, right? Those first collectives, they knew that NIL was going to be big, and they didn't want to have to double dip. They didn't have to want to double dip. They didn't want to have to. If they were going to put all their money in the NIL, some of those cats did not want to keep funding the facility improvements and everything else that they do. Those the big money guys, they didn't want to have to double dip. So the question was asked to USC: if you want to compete at the highest level, you're going to have to come up with some revenues. Pac-12 wasn't going to be the answer in the next deal, and then USC foreseeing changes coming up in college sports that we've talked about, where student athletes are going to get direct deposits to lift their compensation from the school and their conference. Changes are still coming, guys and gals. Changes are still coming. So USC, they went through their options. They called the Big Ten, and that's how we got involved. Same thing with these money perch guys in Arizona State and others are sitting there going, here we go. We're not going to get the money. We're not going to have a money advantage over the Big 12, ACC. We understand that. But what about the other part of the contract of where our student athletes, where are they going to be playing? What distribution? How is that content going to be distributed? And they are scared. And that guy used the word terrifying or terrified. He's terrified. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. And he's not the only one who thinks that way. Trick question, Greg. Minnesota claims national championships during the terms of both Roosevelts. What do you mean claims? They do have the national championships. They have 7 of them. 7 of them. And they better win the college. They better win the men's college hockey national championship this year. They got to do it. They got to beat Quinnipiac. Oh, they're not there yet. Obviously, the tournament hasn't started yet. But the Gophers are now number 2 in the country. They were number 1 in the country. They have to represent the Big Ten. They've got to finally get the Big Ten to have a national champion in college hockey since the creation of the Big Ten Hockey Conference. It's got to happen right now. Daniel Montecastle's talking about Johns Hopkins does a ton of government military research that they can't corroborate on. Notre Dame won't do to Big Ten reproductive research on embryos. Daniel says Johns Hopkins, Notre Dame have an open invitation to join the consortium, but both have reasons why they won't. The Surrey Killer, also in 5 years, if the PAC brings up SDSU to a Power 5 team, they're also in play then, which by then would probably be on par with the Arizona teams. Tom Halleck, Minnesota claims national championships in years they lost bowl games. Facts. Facts are 7, baby. 7. Here we go. 7. I didn't have my song ready. Seven national champions, Gophers. Murray Warmoth. That's right. Tony. Big Ten hockey has become very strong lately. Need one more school. Yeah, they need another school. And honestly, I don't know where it's coming from. Don't know where it's coming from. We thought we had Illinois. We thought they were gonna build a men's and women's Division I hockey programs, and then the pandemic hit. And now it's not gonna happen. Don't know where that 8th school is gonna come from. We were the ones that people don't know us, but at Flag Empire, we were the ones that broke. We put a tweet out there. Then 2 weeks later, we put a tweet out there saying that Notre Dame is talking to Big Ten to join the Big Ten Hockey Conference. At that time, our phone blew up, and we said, "Yep, they're in negotiations." And then a couple weeks later, it was announced that it happened. But we don't have no steam at all for the 8th school for the men's Big Ten Hockey Conference. None whatsoever. Yep, Illinois almost got it done, but they couldn't get it done. Yeah, I saw a tweet earlier by Rebecca. Washington Club Hockey just finished undefeated in the PAC 8 Division II Hockey League. They're going to go to the Frozen Four in Division I to upset the Gophers hockey team because tonight's PATC. The anger that I have created, the motivation that I have created, the angst is going to make it so Washington's Division II team is going to whoop up on the Golden Gophers in hockey. I haven't heard any steam about USC, UCLA creating a hockey program, it takes a lot of money. Takes a lot of money. Takes over $100 million just to start it out. Daniel says, I think Iowa USC should add hockey. I think Peacock still has Notre Dame hockey, Cornelius. Pretty sure they do. Curtis, if USC, UCLA added ice hockey, that would be so awesome. That would be pretty cool. Minnesota's last national championship season was the same year Hawaii became a state. A lot of people are picking on my Gophers. The Minnesota Golden Gophers, they've won multiple wrestling national champions, football championships, hockey, men's and women's, baseball, multiple baseball national champions. The last one was also in 1956. Okay. Roy, nice to see you in the house, sir. If the PAC ends up all streaming, it might be worse exposure in the front end. As cord cutting accelerates in the next few years, the Big 12's deal will provide less and less exposure, just boomers. That is what people are hoping for. And a lot of smart people like you, Roy, believe that. I'm not there yet. Although I'm not very smart either. Maybe that's why I'm not there yet. I'm very concerned. I've not hidden that concern. I can't wait to see the deal. I hope it gets announced tomorrow or the next day. I want to see it. And when that deal gets announced, we're going to be coming live right away, where there's going to be no hesitation. No hesitation. We're going to be going live. And so that is why, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, subscribe tonight, because you'll get notified. You'll know that we're coming on for late breaking news. So come on, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, share the video with your family and friends, subscribe to our channel. Sky Yuma, it's tough being a Gophers fan, but we need to stick together. No doubt about it. Tough to be a Gopher. Bruce Harris, if the Gophers are winning a championship, then there's a world war right around the corner here at Peak Around the Corner. Okay, I'm just going to check my messages here. All right. Oh, look at Terry Nord. Terry Nord is in the house right when we're closing up. Right when we're closing up for tonight. Terry Aloysius, Himalacious, Connotacious, Sacrilegious Nord. Gophers men's hockey lost to Wisconsin on Saturday. It was a terrible loss. That's why we went from number 1 in the country. Now we're number 2 behind Quinnipiac. No cloak and daggers tonight. That's right. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Get your drink. Get your drink in before you leave the chat. Cornelius Green likes the elevated court at Minnesota. A lot of players have tumbled off that court. Minnesota Golden Gophers, the worst men's college football, basketball program in the nation. And we got a whole lot of talent. A whole lot of high school talent in this state. But we can't get them. We cannot get them. Cornelius Green, Kevin McHale, the late Flip Saunders, Tony Dungy, Michael Thompson, all Gopher alums. All right, we're going to close it up here for tonight. This was an emergency live show. We started earlier than we normally would. I wanted to make sure we get this live show in. We were talking about the Pac-12 statement. This is the statement right here, fellas and ladies. Joint statement from the 10 Pac-12 Conference Board members. The 10 Pac-12 universities look forward to consummating successful media rights deal in the very near future. Based upon positive conversations with multiple potential media right partners over the past weeks, we remain highly confident in our future growth and success as a conference and united in our commitment to one another. There's been a sort of split decision here in the chat room. A lot of people think that's a weak statement. I expected that statement. I talked about it Saturday night. I expected some positive spin coming out of the Pac-12 before they signed that deal. But I'm putting my chips in the middle of the table that the Pac-12 stays together, that the Big 12 will not be able to poach. But I'm also putting my chips in the middle of the table that says the Pac-12's media deal is going to be horrific. A lot of people disagree with me in the chat. We shall see. But until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thanks. Have a